Welcome to I Change the Narrative, a podcast for and about Black men inspiring, supporting, and empowering Black men and Black boys. Today's guest will be sharing his expertise on stretching because it does our bodies good. Before we start the conversation, I want our guest to tell us about himself and the work that he's involved in that lends itself to the topic or the lived experience. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Unica. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you again for having me on your show. I'm honored to be here. Super excited about the work that you do with inspiring men and making a change. So, also excited to share my story. Can I go ahead and get started on it?
You could give a little background about yourself first, and then we can get into that.
Okay. All right. So, hey, everyone, from all you listening, my name is Ben Atanga. I live in the DMV, just right outside of Washington, D.C., in Hyattsville. And I own and operate the Stretch Loft and the Stretch Loft Academy. The Stretch Loft is a holistic based business that specializes in the release of stored tension, trauma, and stress from the body, utilizing manual stretching. And the Stretch Loft Academy is our academy that trains and coaches wellness providers in the art of stretch therapy. We actually certify them and teach them a bit more about the industry.
Thank you so much. Words and wisdoms change outcomes. So I thank you for being a part of this conversation today. This episode of I Change the Narrative is powered by So Organic, So Suave, also known as Sauce. Sauce is a luxury hair care and skincare refuge for those with thick hair and melanin rich skin. From healthy beard growth to top of head hairstyling to an illuminating skincare regimen. Sauce essentials will naturally enhance your outer appearance to strengthen your inner confidence. Sauce invites you to accept the authenticity and real self care and embrace your best. You can find Sauce's award winning grooming essentials online at sossd.co. Again, that's sossd.co. You can also follow Sauce on Instagram and for the latest in product news and updates at sossd.co. Elevate your grooming with Sauce today. After a challenging workout, the last thing you probably want to do is spend 5 to 10 minutes stretching. Some view it as annoying, optional, or unnecessary. However, the power of stretching extends far beyond pre and post workout. It keeps your muscles nourished by promoting healthy blood flow and fluid exchange. While improving flexibility, you're also preparing your joints to move in their full range of motion. And you can also decrease your risk of injury. And of course, we all know that stretching releases tension and just feels so good. It's the reward your body deserves. And doing so can result in much needed physical and mental health benefits. Ben, tell us first of all how you got involved in this idea of stretching.
So, my background, I'm a former athlete. I played football at Bowie State University here in Maryland. And I remember getting to college, and I was someone who was naturally strong. I was naturally fast, naturally athletic, and I spent a lot of time in the weight room. And when I got to college, a lot of high school seniors think, man, I got to get bigger, to prepare for these guys that I'm gonna be playing up against. But um, what I realized was that the more that I worked out, the more that I lifted, the tighter I got, and the tighter I got, the less athletic I got. Like I couldn't really move. And so I remember going into my fourth season, and I told the coach, I'm going to, kind of back off from doing so much lifting and focus on stretching. And I did that during the off season, and I came back a year later, a completely different player. And so that was really like my early. That's probably about the earliest point where stretching made a difference in my life because I went from struggling to get on the field to actually getting on the field and playing because I changed how I was working out. Um, Post college, I got into personal training and when I would work with my clients, I always noticed that they always had some sort of joint or muscular pain that kept them from, whether it was running or doing lunges or doing squats, doing shoulder presses, like simple moves. And I just remember like having to have to like go through and create workouts and stuff like that around their injuries. And so I was always interested in finding out how can I help to rehabilitate these people so that they can perform. And it's interesting because you said that at the end of the workout, the last thing you want to do is stretch. And that's true. The last thing you want to do is stretch yourself. But I remember when I had my clients at the end of the workout, I would stretch them, and they would always perk up and say, "Ooh, the best part." And so it's it's not as fun to stretch yourself, but it's heaven to have someone stretch you at the end of a workout. Just imagine you had a tough workout and you're laying on the ground and your trainer's stretching you, and it's a feeling of bliss, right? And so it was really that moment that was one of the second moments for me where, I was like, there's something about this because they'll complain throughout the whole workout on how hard it is, but the last 5 minutes when you put hands on them, that's what they lit up about. And so I always wanted to have people leave me feeling their best. And so throughout my training career, I ended up injuring myself lifting, and um, I dropped the weight on my left foot. I didn't break anything, but it was enough impact that it left me sort of off balance. I was putting my weight on the opposite side of my body, if you can imagine. And over time, the joints on the other side of my body started getting real tight, especially around my lower back and hip. And it just started to hurt to sit, to stand. I just sort of saw my life declining at like a rapid rate.
Wow.
And so I was used to things healing, being a former athlete, and this was just getting worse. Um, it got so bad that I had to stop working out because when I'd work out, I would feel so much pain, like it didn't feel good. And I started going to chiropractor, physical therapy, massage. I started trying different things, and I would do the treatments. It would help a bit, but I was still stuck with this pain.
Mhm.
And so one day I'm in the gym and I met a trainer who knew how to stretch, and he saw the way I was walking. I kind of had like a limp, and we kind of just live with our pain. Um, and what I didn't realize is that that limp would cause me to stop working out, gain 30 pounds. I was getting depressed, and I was kind of in this space of like, this is going to be the thing that's going to take me out. Until I met that trainer who stretched me for 15 minutes. And when I got off that table, I felt brand new. I think I was around 28, 29 at the time. I felt like I was 19 again.
Wow.
And so, like, I remember I got off the table and I got down to a deep squat and I stood back up and I looked at him and I was like, I'm back, right? It'd been a year and a half since I felt like, since I could squat with no pain. And so it was that moment that I realized this is what I want to do. I keep coming back to this thing.
Mhm.
And, when I got into it, I went, I learned about it and stuff like that. I started applying the techniques, and my clients started having the exact same effect that I had, like the wow, like life changing, right? Like I was giving them their life back. And as I continued to hone in on my practice of stretching, I sort of realized it's not even about the flexibility. It's people have stored energy from car accidents, from having babies, from playing sports when they were younger, from being stressed out at work, from sitting at a desk all day. And all that energy was just being stored in their bodies and keeping them tense and tight.
Mhm.
And this was a way for them to release it. And so that's what I've been working on all this time with the Stretch Loft and the Stretch Loft Academy. Those are some of the principles that I teach on. And so it's not so much on the flexibility as it is on the release of stored energy and tension.
I think that is an awesome story about how, you felt like you were 19 again, because that's exactly the way I feel when I stretch. I feel, just like I feel like a new person, so I think that is awesome. So talk to us about, its importance as it relates to a Black man's mental health and his physical health.
So yeah, so like we talked about, stored energy, right? When you are tense, when you're carrying around all this energy, it starts to limit your expression, whether that's your physical, your mental, or your emotional, or even your verbal expression, right? I remember going through my thing and like with my hip, and I started getting depressed, right? Like I was a former college athlete, I was a personal trainer, I was used to being in shape. But when I started hurting when I'd work out, it started to affect me up here. I gained weight. Sort of lost drive. Like, it that played a part on me. And so I think for a lot of men, we're not used to taking care of ourselves. Like self-care is not a word that we throw around, right? And also I don't think it's a word that even if you said it, like if you ask most men, what do you do for self-care? We, most of us are going to be stuck.
Mhm.
Most of us are going to be stuck, right? And so I think that sort of the way that we approach it by really talking about that stored tension and stored energy is something that people can relate to, right? And so in most men and most people, it shows up as short temper,
Mm.
on edge, right? Tight, can't sleep, anxiety, pain, right? Hair loss, right? Different illnesses, right?
Right.
Because the body's not getting that blood flow. Blood isn't moving around efficiently. It's not getting that oxygen, right? So it's all stored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Mm. Wow. So, in other words, not only when we stretch, it affects our body, but it also affects our brain, and we're actually stretching our brain. Is that correct?
You're in a way you're nourishing your brain
Right.
because you're opening up vessels so that blood can flow to the different areas efficiently, right? Like
Wow.
I compare tightness to like phone signal, right? Like when the signal's not clear, right? You drop the call. So that's the same thing as blood flow. Like when you're tight, that signal's not clear. So the blood's not flushing through the way it's supposed to. Your body's not being oxygenated the way it's supposed to,
Wow.
right? And
Right.
so you can get similar benefits from like Pilates, massage, um, but there's something about stretching because you're just laying there,
Mm.
right? You're actually relinquishing all control.
Wow. So, would you recommend, which one would you recommend? The person, a person stretching you, or doing it yourself?
I would recommend both,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
Stretching yourself should be a daily practice. Like if we look at animals, we look at dogs, right?
Mhm.
When a dog's been laying around and it gets up, what's the first thing it does, right? Stretches his front legs, stretches his back legs, and shakes, right? Realigns the spine. We should be doing the exact same thing, right?
Wow.
When you stand up, right, you should probably go into a cobra pose, right? Stretch
Mhm.
out the front part, and
Mhm.
then maybe reach down, touch your toes, and then sort of do some rotations,
Mm.
right? Like that's free,
Right.
right?
Wow.
And also getting stretched by someone, it has a few different benefits. Number one, the act of self care. So the act of self care is the acknowledgement of yourself. One, right? The
Mhm.
investment in yourself, right? Builds up your own self value.
Mhm.
And then also having someone,
I can't
having
hear.
someone, can you hear me?
Can hear you now.
Okay. So having someone actually lay hands on you and release that tension and stress, that's you actually relinquishing control, right?
Got
It's,
it.
it, I don't want to get too deep into it, but also it's a form of intimacy.
Mm.
Okay, I'm sorry. This thing is, I have it
That's
on.
That's
Okay.
a
Well, they say intimacy is intimacy you see.
yes.
So for a lot of men, that's difficult for us, right?
Mm,
And
mhm.
so a lot of brothers, may find it difficult to come and lay down and have someone else, stretch them and open them up like that, right? But
Right.
that fear also shows up in other areas in life, right?
Wow.
And inside of a session, you can release that.
Wow. I didn't know this conversation was gonna go that deep into this. Wow, that's amazing. So talk to us about, when are we supposed to stretch? Give us some tips.
So there, when it comes to stretching, right? Like the whole body's connected, right? If
Yes.
you feel something's tight, you try to stretch it. You put your body in certain positions that will cause your body to stretch. You have to discover and explore your body,
Mm,
right?
yes.
And you have to do it by, probably starting off on the ground. I encourage people to start off on the ground and just start moving, start rolling your legs around, start moving different parts, right? Like really explore your body, and you're going to start to find where you're limited.
Mhm.
Okay. But if I was to pick some top areas to stretch, I'd say, you want to stretch the front of your hips, the hip flexors, because a lot of us sit down for long periods of time,
Yes.
right? I would say you want to stretch your lower back, okay? Because
Mhm.
a lot of us are sort of imbalanced and our hips are uneven. So just reaching down, touching your toes. And um, I'd also say, I'm going to give you guys four. So I'd say you also want to stretch your neck, okay?
Mm,
Because it's a part of your spine, okay? So just doing different stretches on your neck, pulling it this way,
right.
right? Kind of pulling it up this way, all right? And then lastly, this is what made the biggest change for me was stretching the sides of your hips, okay?
Mhm.
Like we're designed to move backwards, forward, but also sideways,
Right.
right? But we rarely move sideways, okay? And so those muscles over time get tighter. So just kind of swinging your hips left and right allows for your hips to get stretched out. So when my lower back and hip was getting real tight, it was those side hip stretches that helped to really open me up.
Okay. Um,
Well, I guess north, south, east, west.
got it. Got it. Thank you for that tip. So the side effects of not stretching, let's go back to that because I need my 30 and 40-year-olds to, and my 50s and my 60-year-olds to, let's understand this, let's break this down because it's important. I read that 30, you should really get into stretching. So talk to us about that.
Stretching is honestly something that should be standard from grade school,
Oh,
right?
mhm.
I found that stretching is probably the number one way for you to cure yourself and heal yourself.
Mm,
A lot of diseases and illnesses are due to a lack of your body getting nutrients and blood flow and
mm,
body being oxygenated, right? So think about a plant. It needs water, it needs light, right?
mhm.
Without water and light, it's not going to survive.
Right.
And so this is something that I really believe we should start really focusing on and implementing in grade school, right? By the time you get to 30, you've formulated some habits, right? Whether you walk and your feet are out this way,
Mhm.
or you've been sitting down for long periods of time, and you've been hunching over. You've been a gamer all your life,
Right.
right? Or you're constantly your cell phone, and you've got like tightness right through here,
Right.
right? And so, um, I think that like it's it starts before 30,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Um, the side effects of not stretching, I would say the number one side effect is that it increases aging,
That's important.
right? Like I've always said that um, you don't get older because the calendar year changes. You get older because you start to limit yourself. Your ability starts to become limited. You start to say things, "Oh, I used to be able to."
Mhm.
Those are the signs of aging, right? You can
Right.
be 60 and be mobile and be strong and really have a lot of life in you. Have more life than 30-year-old,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So for those that cannot get to you, do you offer anything online where a person can stretch at home through your guidance?
I don't yet offer something like that. However, I'm working on something
Okay.
um, to be able to provide people with some of the different stretches that they can do. Um,
Okay.
because I realized, like I said, it's not something that we were taught in school.
Right.
So when your doctor says you need to stretch,
Hmm.
it's like, okay.
Right. Right.
Right? Like when you hear stretch, you think touch your toes, kick your foot back, and grab your heel to your butt, right? Maybe
Yes.
do a few rotations like this, and then it's like, okay, all stretched,
Right.
right?
Right. Absolutely.
You've done 10%.
Exactly. So, are there any myths behind stretching?
Some of the myths are that, there's a thing there used to be a thing going about like which is better, static stretching, which is like holding your stretches,
Right.
or like dynamic stretches, which is like stretching with movement, right? And the thing about it is that they both have their own place.
Hmm.
They both have their own place. It's you should really do a combination of both,
Okay.
right? You should really do a combination of both. Like when you're doing static, you should still make it dynamic in a way where, like, let's say you're holding pigeon, right? You can slowly move through pigeon to open up different parts of your glute.
Got it.
Okay? You're not just holding it in one place. The
Mhm.
body doesn't work like that. Like every time you take a step, there's a bunch of muscles and bones and tendons moving, right? And so that lets you know that the body wants to move. Okay. But
Okay.
there's some certain areas that may need a bit of a focus that where you may need to hold it a bit.
Got it. Got it. Anything else? Any other myths?
Um, I don't know if this is a myth or not, but as someone so I consider myself a stretchpreneur,
Okay.
and there was a once upon a time I didn't know that I could build a business and a lifestyle and support myself and my family through stretching.
Mm.
And so, and I don't, and this is a new industry. People are still kind of like stretching.
Yeah.
And so this is something that actually can be done that this is something that you can learn how to do
Hmm.
and actually start to help people, right? Like
Right.
the way that we receive education and information these days has expanded
Right.
beyond classrooms and going to college and stuff like that. Like people are now learning technical skill sets. Like girls are learning how to do lashes and stuff like that, right? Like people are doing body contouring businesses. And these are all services that are actually helping people and lifting the human spirit, right?
Right.
Beautifying the human spirit. Stretching is also one of them, right? So it's not something where you must have some sort of like kinesiology degree or like your physical therapist. Um, it's a technical skill set that you learn and that you can hone in on and start to learn more about the body. I always say that it's a journey in self discovery.
Mm.
If you're someone who really enjoys working with people, you're someone who's passionate about wellness, your own wellness, someone who enjoys movement and art, this may be something for you, right?
Yeah.
The last 9 years, this is all I've done. And I've gone from stretching people one on one to building a studio, having run multiple studios, doing this on the road, traveling around the country, doing pop ups. Um, and now I actually have an academy where I teach people how to
Right.
do it. So just in case anyone ever thought that was a myth, um,
Hmm.
it's no, it's true. You
Right.
can.
Wow. How long does the training take?
So the initial training, my initial training takes 2 days, right?
Okay.
I teach people the basics of stretching, like how you can safely stretch someone, full body stretch,
Okay.
right? When you get into this field, it's something that you become a student at, and you
Mhm.
continue to learn as you continue to explore the body.
Got it.
But it's something that you can actually get into. So I actually have students who come and take my 2 day course, and now they're out here being stretch practitioners and working on people.
Wow.
Yeah.
So for those that are in the DMV and who are listening, Tell our listeners how they can contact you, how they can connect with you, so that they can possibly explore taking a course with you.
Okay, so the best way to actually catch me is on Instagram. Okay, I post daily. I'm the content person in the business.
Mhm.
I'm the influencer, and so I check all the messages. They can check us out at the Stretch Loft on Instagram. On Instagram, once again, the Stretch Loft. Um, if they want to make an appointment, they want to talk to someone, they can call or text us 202-897-1013. And I own and operate the Stretch Loft with a team of other wellness practitioners. So we have occupational therapists, personal trainers, massage therapists on the team. And so, they're all trained in-house, and, they all have their own special gift, their own special calling to this. So if you're looking for the service, text us. If you're trying to reach me, Instagram me, DM me.
Awesome. I'm so proud of you. I just really appreciate that you're doing this work. So thank you for that. Are there any last thoughts or added notes that we have not touched upon that you think that our listeners need to hear?
No, I think we've given them a lot of information, a lot to think about, a lot to consider.
Yes.
Um, you know, um, I thank you for having me on this. My goal for this year is really exposure. My goal and my mission for this work is to spread it globally. And so we actually just started franchising. And so the Stretch Off will be available for franchise in the next upcoming months. And so we're trying to get it in especially all the urban areas, in big cities, and also across the globe. So um, yeah.
Have you taken your business into any of the schools and exposed them to why you need stretching?
I had the opportunity to actually go back to my alma mater and work with the athletes who were there. They were in the championship game 2 years ago,
Mhm.
and I had the honor of going to working with them. And coming from an HBCU and being a former athlete, it's just it's something that's needed. Like, they don't have the resources. It's very backdated, and so one of the things that I'm working on right now is actually putting my training and education into school systems and university systems, and so that they can provide the services not only for the student body but also for the athletes. And I think that that's going to change the face of sports. Like, I've always said, if I had this when I was playing football, I would have been a completely different athlete,
Yeah,
completely different.
yeah,
Because I put the work in on the front end, but I didn't have the recovery on the back.
right. Well, Ben, that is our time. But before we go, tell our listeners again how they can connect with you.
So once again, you can connect with me on Instagram at the Stretch Law. I'm always on there. I check the messages. You can also check out a bunch of our content talking about how to book an appointment, client testimonies, our course, our academy that we have that we have going on. If you're looking to book an appointment, you want to talk to someone, call us or text us at 202-897-1013.
Thank you for highlighting your experiences and your expertise for doing your part in changing the narrative. And lastly, for keeping your commitment by being a part of I Change the Narrative podcast. That means a lot. If you've enjoyed the show, let us know. If you or someone you know is changing the narrative, please contact us on any of our platforms. We are here to share your story. For merch, visit iChangeTheNarrative.org. Thank you to our sponsors, So Organic, So Suave. You can follow Sauce on Instagram. For the latest in product news and updates, visit at www.sossd.co. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok, IG, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at I Change the Narrative. That's all one word. We've added a weekday pop-up segment, and we'll see you next time, same place, for more great show and for more great conversation. Thank you all for listening.